Hey guys, it's Jess, and I am so excited to be sharing another post for the Maymay Made It design team. This time I'm using a stamp set that I have not used yet. It's been in my stash for a few months now, and I've been eyeing it and wanting to use it so badly, and I just never got the time to do it. So today is a happy day for me. This stamp set is called Power Flowers because that's adorable. And I'm using the Brutus Monroe Raven Detail ink to stamp out some of the images from the stamp set. I feel like I say this every time, but you guys know that I love to create my own backgrounds using stamped images. And this was a perfect stamp set to do that with because it has coordinating similar but very different images that you can use. They all go really well together, so you can mix and match. The possibilities here are really endless. You can do pretty much anything you want with this. I wasn't very careful when I was stamping, so I didn't get a perfect impression with that one at the top, but that's okay. I actually went back in with a Copic multi-liner and just sort of touched up the edge. I didn't worry about the stuff in the center of the petal because I'm going to be doing some ink smushing, and by the time I'm done, you're really not going to be able to tell that there's anything wrong with it. So I figured there was no point in starting over and wasting this background panel that I was already working on. So then I moved on to some leaf images. I really like the way these are drawn. I don't know what it is about this kind of leaf, but I really like it. So I decided to add a few of those, and then I went with the little tiny coordinating one as well. And I'm just stamping out all of those images, taking care to go off the page in some areas so that it looks like that pattern continues. Even though I'm going to trim this down later anyway, it just makes it look more natural, I guess. Less like you tried to keep it all inside of a border and more like it was maybe a piece of pattern paper that you cut down to size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Distress Oxide inks and a water brush. Now you don't want to mix colors with this really because you will transfer the pigment onto your other ink pads, and you don't really want to do that too much, but I was just kind of experimenting here. I wasn't sure how this was going to work, but I wanted to at least give it a try and see if this was a cool way to use the oxides. I think it's really neat, and you could even, I only had 3 colors picked out, but you could even pick different shades of these colors and use it to do your shading. I actually went back in later with some Copic markers to do my shading, but you could definitely do this with other colors of Oxide inks as well. The cool thing about those Oxide inks is that you can build up color over top because they're a little more opaque, and once they dry, they don't blend quite as much as the Distress inks do, so you are able to build up that color over top. So the colors that I'm using here, the first one was Peacock Feathers. The second one here, this purple, is called Seedless Preserves. And then the third one, and well, the one that I used for the leaves also, is Twisted Citron. These are 3 of my favorite colors. I use them a lot, and the combination never gets old. I also usually throw in some picked raspberry as well. That pink color is one of my favorites also, and sometimes you can catch me using a little squeezed lemonade or mustard seed to brighten things up, but today I wanted to keep it fairly simple. I only used those 3 colors, and I'm really happy with the way that that turned out. So I did go ahead and continue coloring in all of my images with the Distress Oxides and my water brush. Once I was done with that, you can see that I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images that are not colored. Fear not, I didn't forget them. What I'm doing is I'm using the plastic backing sheet from my stamp set to smush ink directly onto this little piece of plastic. So this is the piece that protects the other side of my stamp set when I go to put it away. I smushed my ink directly onto it, spritzed it with a little bit of water, and now I'm using a separate little piece of plastic. This is just a scrap from like some piece of packaging, I'm not sure, but I keep it on my desk for just such occasions as I want to ink smush, and I just use it to pick up the color. I kind of roll it into the color, and then I only press down with my finger in the certain area where I want that color to actually transfer. You can do it without your finger, but you are going to get more transfer, more color, and if you're okay with that, or that's what you want, that's totally fine. But if you're trying to control it a little more, because you guys know I kind of have some control issues about like organized mess, I need it to look a certain way. I don't know why it matters to me so much, but for whatever reason it does. But I added my controlled chaos to the card using that plastic method with they call it ink smushing. And I'm really happy with those results. I did probably need to let this dry a little longer than I did, because when I went to go trim it down, I did take a little notch out of it because the paper wasn't completely dry yet. So that was a bummer, but you live and you learn. So I super sped this up because I'm just adding a couple of little details with a Copic marker, but it's nothing fancy and nothing we really need to spend any time on. I just wanted to keep it in there so you at least knew that I did it, but it's okay if it's like at warp speed. You can see there I was kind of scratching at the little piece that I took the notch out of. It's not super noticeable, but I know it's there, so my eye goes right to it every single time. I wanted to take a look through some of my Maymay sets and see which one I felt would go best, and I was kind of deciding between these two. So I was looking at Maymay's Tulips and Birthday Wishes, and I actually ended up deciding on only using one sentiment. I thought at first I was gonna maybe combine sentiments, or I was gonna use this sentiment and then trim it into a few pieces, something, I don't know, but I actually ended up just using it as a strip straight across the card. I'm actually really happy with the way that that turned out, which kind of surprised me. I thought that I was going to want to put it in multiple lines, but I really liked how it turned out. So I'm going to grab my mini Misty. I'm going to position my little strip of black cardstock that I just trimmed down using that bar magnet. I'm going to use a little anti-static powder tool to treat my surface and make sure that my embossing powder only sticks where I want it and where I put that embossing ink next. And then I'm just going to go ahead and pick out my sentiment. So the one that I ended up picking was "You Are the Best Friend Ever." Originally, I was going to use the other one that said "Bet You Rock This Day," but then I ended up like, everybody needs a best friend card, so let's go with that. So I'm using the Brutus Monroe embossing ink just to ink up that stamp, put it directly down onto my black cardstock, and then I've got that ink there. The cool thing about this Brutus Monroe ink is that it's not sticky. It actually is oil-based, and so it stays wet with plenty of time for you to go ahead and do your heat embossing without worrying about it drying before you're ready. It's good for us slow crafters. I think it's funny that I put everything on, I speed everything up a bit because otherwise we'd be here forever. So it looks like I'm pretty good and I'm pretty speedy, but really it takes me forever. So I'm going to use my heat tool to melt that embossing powder. I really, really like the way that this turned out. This embossing powder that I use here is Alabaster embossing powder from Brutus Monroe, and their embossing powders are wax-free, so you get a really smooth coverage, and I think these have got to be the best embossing powders I've ever used. I really like them. If you haven't tried them, you definitely should. Okay, so I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, if I wanted to color the center of that floral image, if I wanted to just layer this right on top, and I did actually go ahead and decide to just layer it right on top. I thought about maybe using some vellum, but I don't know. I just didn't want to take away from that vibrant background. I really, really liked the way it looked. So I decided no on the vellum. Can you believe it? And then I just went ahead and adhered that sentiment directly to my card front. Now I had already trimmed this one down like you guys saw, and this is currently 4 by 5 1/4, so it's just slightly smaller than an A2 size card, and I am going to go ahead and mount that to a white A2 size card base. I have been on a top folding card kick for a good little while, and those are the ones that I tend to choose. I get asked kind of a lot, like, why are you making top folding cards? It seems weird. And I'm going to be honest, when I first started making them, I thought it was weird too. And then I started making them, and for some reason, I like them better. I don't know why. I can't explain it. I don't have a reason, but now I can't make the ones that open on the side. They weird me out. I don't know. I could buy a card that opened on the side and that would be fine, but to make a card that opens on the side, I don't know. It just seems really weird. I have no idea why, but it does. Anyway, so I'm using the Brutus Monroe foam tape to pop the whole card panel up, give it some dimension, and then I'm just peeling that foam tape backer off. I'm going to go ahead and apply that to my white A2 size card base like I was talking about earlier. And then I decided, normally right now I would use clear sequins, but I thought, let's live life on the wild side. Let's get a little crazy. And I decided to use pink sequins, a different color. I was kind of trying to match my colors a little bit. I have a lot of sequins, you guys, and I don't use them as frequently as I would like to because I default to those clear sequins. So I'm gonna make that one of my crafty resolutions, even though it's not the new year anymore. But that's gonna be one of my goals, is to use more of the different colored sequins rather than always using the clear ones. So these ones, they're like a light purpley pink sort of color, and I thought they went really well with that Seedless Preserves as it was watered down a bit. It seems like it works pretty well. So I'm just using some Brutus Monroe craft glue to adhere those, and that finishes off the card. I hope that you love it. Be sure to leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Give me a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I will see you guys in another video. Thanks so much. Bye.